right, everybody. I'd like to welcome you here tonight. My name is Tracy Dietrich, and I'm program coordinator for 4-H Alberta. And along with the back committee, we've got this beef webinar set up for you for tonight. The first is just to remind you that we are recording this session. So I did ask that you just make sure you just have your first name on your names, just so that it's, just your first name would be perfect. Let's get started with the pledge, please. So you can unmute and we're going to say the pledge. All right? Always fun. I pledge my head to
clear thinking,
my
my
heart
heart to dream,
Stands to our service,
my love, my community,
my
my country, and my world.
community,
country, and my world. Good job, everybody. All right, so I think you can see my screen right now. And we have the beef feedlot or beef webinar tonight, the feedlot tour. Make sure you mark your calendars for April 5th. I will send out another link, and that is going to be the auction market tour, and it'll start at 7:30. The beef webinar beef webinars, we'd like to express our sincere appreciation to our provincial partners and supporters for their continued investment and support to our programs. Thank you. Our Diamond Clover sponsor is Government of Alberta. Our Emerald Clover sponsors are Alberta Recycling, Eltalink, ATB, Calgary Stampede Foundation, Chartered Professional Accountants, UFA. A Silver Clover sponsor is Cargill, Bronze Clover, Alberta Beef Producers, and White Clover is LIS, Livestock Identification. And without them, this would not be possible. So we thank them for their continued support. Okay, so now I am going to turn it over to Jay Good, who has put this over or has put this all together for you, and he will give a bit of an overview and what you're going to see tonight. So welcome here tonight, Jay.
Thanks, Tracy. So the Beef Advisory Committee has created two videos for your learning purposes for this year. The first one is a virtual tour of TFS Expanse Feedlot at Hayes, Alberta. That's just north of Taber. This is where this is a feedlot that both backgrounds and finishes cattle. We're going to be helped on this by the members of the John Ware 4-H Club. They'll be asking some important questions, and then Andy Boersma from TFS Feedlots will be answering the questions. And if you've got any questions, I don't know, Tracy, we want to handle them in chat, or do we want to hold all the questions to the end?
They can type them in the chat, and then we can just circle back through Jay when they're thinking about it, or they can just wait till the end. We won't answer them through the video, just so they know.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so ready to get started then. Let me know that you guys can hear it and see it when it gets going.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. You guys are early. We're here today to watch a virtual feedlot tour put on part of a continuing series created for the Beef Advisory Committee. This feedlot tour will take us through TFS Expanse Feedlot at Hayes and answer some questions that have been posed by 4-H members. So let's sit back and enjoy the video.
How do you get the calves to start eating the silage out of the bunk? So one thing that we find easiest to get calves eating silage is to incorporate a ration that has a bulk amount of hay in it. As the calves start eating a little bit more, we take a little bit of hay out of the ration, incorporate more silage, until of course the hay is gone. And the calves are onto a silage ration.
How long do you wait to process the calves after arrival?
So I guess that question is a little bit difficult. We treat calves a little bit differently, whether they come directly off of a ranch or if they come straight out of the auction. If they come from the auction, we are doing those calves immediately upon arrival. And if they're coming off a ranch, then we usually do them 3 to 4 days after arrival.
Do you mix cattle from different farms and ranches?
Yes, we do combine cattle from other farms and ranches and put them in the same pen together, and they all become friends.
What treatments do you give calves after arrival?
So when the calves arrive, they essentially get an implant, a broad spectrum antibiotic, and a dewormer. Upon that, they get vaccinations for respiratory illnesses.
Do you give implants to different kinds of cattle?
Yes, essentially we do give different implants to different sizes of cattle when they arrive. For example, if we have a 500-pound heifer calf, we give them a Ralgro, and if we have a 700-pound heifer calf, we'll give them a component DH.
What's the difference between backgrounding and finishing?
So when we're backgrounding calves, essentially we're just keeping them on a diet, stretching them to when the owner wants to market them and get them off to another yard for finishing. And when we're finishing, we are pouring a high-grain ration to these animals with the intention of getting them as fat as we can, as quick as we can, and off to slaughter.
What gains do you target for different cattle to slaughter in June?
Well, assuming that this steer calf arrived into our yard at 600 pounds, today being November the 12th, we would have about 200 days on feed to get it to June, which would mean we need to get 800 pounds onto it. We need 4 pounds of gain per day per animal to achieve that.
What gains do you target for backgrounded calves?
Well, assuming again that that steer calf came in at around 600 pounds, we would typically target at around 2 pounds of gain per day, up to around 900 or 1,000 pounds before it moves off to the other yard. But that can change based on how the owner would like to target his cattle.
What feed ingredients do you use?
Right now, we are currently using a blend of ingredients. We have corn silage, dried distiller's grain, pressed beet pulp, and steam flaked corn. Makes a balanced diet for the calves.
How is feed delivered to the pens?
So we deliver feed to the pens by combining the previous mentioned ingredients onto our TMR truck. And from there, we send out a dry matter intake ration from the office, and we deliver it in that feed truck to the feed bunk to the calves.
How often do you check the cattle?
So the cattle are checked every single morning. Doesn't matter whether it's a holiday or Sunday, the animals are checked every single day.
How often do you bed the cattle?
We bed the cattle every time we see major weather events, and of course, if they start getting a little damp in the pens and start getting a little tacky, more straw is added so we can keep these calves warm and dry.
How do you keep track of all those animals?
Fortunately for us, we have a cattle software system that allows us to keep track of all of our arrivals, shipments, treatments, and so on and so forth. Of course, without the use of software, we have a pen and paper and a good manager.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Advisory Committee. At this point, I'd like to encourage everybody, all you members, to take part in as many provincial and regional competitions as you can. And that includes the 4-H Alberta Beef Heifer Show, Provincial Carcass Competition, and all those regional and provincial caps that you're eligible for. At this point, I'd like to thank Andy Boersma and the staff at TFS Expanse at Hayes for allowing us to film there and for answering the questions. And I'd like to thank the members of the John Ware 4-H Club for asking all those questions that'll help us learn about what happens to your calves once they go to the feedlot.
Okay, perfect. So now if any of you guys have questions, you can just unmute and ask, and we'll go from there. Nobody has any questions about anything you've seen in the video?
I do.
Okay, good.
Where are they located?
Where are they located?
The different farms and ranches.
They're located at Hayes, Alberta. So that's between Tabor and Brooks.
Got it.
How many head do they have?
How many head do they have?
They can feed about 10,000 head. Nice little lot.
Say thank you.
Thank you. How big are the pens?
Well, that particular feedlot, those pens will hold anywhere from 50 head to 250 head.
Jay, there's another question in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lice, the lice will get treated at induction with a pour-on. I don't know if you remember in the video, you saw the syringe with the pour-on with the little control box beside it. So that's connected to the scale so that the pour-on is the correct dose for the weight is administered. Whatever the weight of the animal, that animal is, that calculates the dose of the pour-on. And the pour-on that's being used is essentially whatever the vet prescribes within that veterinary client relationship. They can change brands whenever.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Usually, how many times a year do you have to treat or vaccinate your cows in the feedlot?
Vaccinations. So in the fall, the calves will get anti-clostridials and they'll get respiratory vaccines. And then if they move to another feedlot, they'll get a full dose of vaccines again, just as a precaution. If they stay in one lot to get finished, they'll usually get an IBR or sorry, a BVD vaccine at re-implanting. So they could get up to 3 doses of vaccines in their life. Can people rent their cattle or do they have their own cattle? You can't. Renting cattle is a good way to get into trouble. TFS Expanse owns some of their own cattle. They have some share pens and they will complete custom feed for other people. Yeah, but renting cattle's a little bit of a dangerous game.
What time of year do you usually vaccinate them?
Pardon me?
What time of year do you usually vaccinate them in the feedlot?
So they'll get vaccinated in the fall anytime that they come into the feedlot, they're going to get vaccinated. So that feedlot, that filming was done the beginning of November. So they were filling up with calves. That feedlot is now getting backgrounded cattle in. So those cattle are going to get vaccinated again. And then some feedlots will vaccinate for IBR and BVD at about 100 days after initial processing. And it really doesn't, most feedlots don't really take into account what's been given on farm because they have to make sure that every animal gets its correct complement of vaccine. So even if the calves have been vaccinated, at branding, they're going to get them again in the fall. There's just no questions asked. How do we decide to ship or keep longer? Well, I do mean, how do we decide if we're going to background or finish a pen, or how do we decide when they're finished? Which do you mean there? When the calves come in, or when the feeder cattle come into the feedlot, we know between Expanse and the people that own the cattle there, we know roughly what they're going to gain. We've fed enough cattle that we know that if we place steers now, they're going to gain 4 pounds a day. We know roughly what size we expect them to be based on their frame size when we buy them. So then we'll, using our computer projections, we'll come up with an expected out date or the day when they're going to be finished. And then from there, we'll plan our marketings around that. And then we also use visual evaluation. We're always looking at the cattle to make sure that they're on track, to make sure that they're going to be ready when we say they are. Then if we have to move them ahead or back a few weeks, we can do that. But mostly when we place the cattle, we have a pretty good idea of when they're going to be going. As far as backgrounding cattle, again, we're targeting 2 pounds a day gain, and we want to ship our backgrounded cattle at about 850 pounds for heifers, 900 pounds for steers. We know when they're going to be at that point, so we can do our marketing based on that. We'll essentially have them marketed about the time that the pen is full. We'll have a pretty good idea when they're going to go, and we can make our plans around that.
What do you do with the calves that are smaller over the summer?
Well, those calves, when they go to the auction market, they'll usually get sorted out and sold with lighter calves at the auction market. When we buy calves out of the auction market, we ask our buyers to maintain a very tight weight range in the pens. So if you take your calves to the auction market, your heifer calves might get split 4 ways. Your steer calves might get split 4 different ways for weights. So we're only buying 1 of those or maybe 2 of those, and we'll keep those separate. If we buy calves direct off the ranch, and there's some real small ones in there, they will probably get, first of all, we try to avoid buying those. But if we do get them, they might, a big lot might get split into 2. We might make a smaller lot with a smaller cattle to market them later, but we try to avoid them if we can. We try to keep our groups as even as possible. What do we do if they bloat? Well, if they bloat, they go into the hospital at the feedlot and they'll be treated for bloat, depending on whether it's a frothy bloat or a gassy bloat. But again, every feedlot's got its own treatment protocols that they work on with the vet, and bloat will be included in that. It's kind of hard to give a general overview answer.
Do you guys get 4-H steers at the feedlot?
No, 4-H steers are sold as finished, we hope. And we don't buy any finished steers at the feedlot. We don't want anything over 950 pounds. So if you guys are selling 4-H steers at 950 pounds, there's probably something wrong with them. We're probably not going to buy them. Ideal intake weight. That's a good question. We try to buy various different weights so that we can maintain year-round marketings. So in the fall, we'll buy big steers, big heifers. We'll 750 pounds. We'll buy 550 pound heifer calves or heifer calves and steer calves that will background and we'll be putting into yards now to finish them. We'll also buy some 400 pound or 500 pound heifer or calves, and those ones will end up going to grass. We don't do too many of those, but we have a few of our customers will do that.
Issues with having your animals in such a tight area?
No, that feedlot actually has pretty big, lots of space for the animals. If you, because it's on a dirt floor in the pen, so they're looking at about 250 to. No, I'm not going to give you that number. I'm not certain of it. If we're on rolled compacted concrete, we can get a lot more cattle into a pen. No, there's no issues with them being in that tight of a situation.
Thank you.
The other thing to remember there is there's the Canadian Code of Practice for beef production, and it's got a recommended square footage for your pens so that you make sure you've got enough space in your pens, and that recommended square footage will change if you're on a dirt-based pen, if you're on a clay-based pen, or if you're on a concrete or paved pen. Are there any specific breeds of cattle that gain quicker? Yeah, see, I'm an old purebred guy and I don't get into breed conversations. We can make for the most part, we can make any breed gain fast. Some will. The exotics will gain quicker. The faster that cattle gain, generally speaking, the poorer the grades, because they're not alive long enough to deposit fat in the muscle. So big gains aren't always the answer.
Do you usually get heifers?
Yeah, there's roughly half the heifers that are born every year end up in feedlot system, depending on the demand for cows and the grass situation and how many people are going to be wanting bred heifers. That particular feedlot right now has quite a few heifers in it. Actually, it's 3 major customers feed a lot of heifers.
If you have any really good heifers that you think would make cows, would you breed them and keep them yourselves?
Would you take them out of the feedlot pen? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking? I wouldn't. The reason being that, well, 2 reasons. If they were good enough to be heifers, breeding stock, they've probably already been sorted out. The other thing is that the growth promotants that they give them, only Ralgrow is licensed for use on breeding stock. Once you've given them any of the other implants, there's no, those implants aren't registered for use in breeding stock. And I don't know if they would affect the reproductive system of the heifer. I don't know how bad it would be, but I would avoid it. I'd avoid the implanted heifers. Addison wants to know if steers gain better than heifers. Yes, they do, roughly 10 to 15% better than heifers.
Is there any more questions for Jay?
Do you keep any of your calves as bulls to breed to your cows?
Well, we don't have a cow herd. So all we're doing is we're buying calves. We do not buy bulls. If we find bulls in a pen that we've bought, the buyer takes them back. We just do not buy them. We don't castrate them. We don't want them. We didn't pay for them, so they can leave. With the number of butcher shops closing, do we worry about the future of selling? We always need more capacity in slaughter, and that's North America wide. We need more capacity, whether it's big shops, little shops, mom and pop, little small town butcher shops. We need hooks. That's all there is to it, and competition.
Do you guys get many dairy cows?
We do not feed dairy. Expanse doesn't feed dairy or beef over dairy cross. However, there is quite a number of Holsteins being fed in southern Alberta, and there's quite a number of beef over dairies. So that's where the dairies are AIing to a beef bull. There's quite a number of those being fed in southern Alberta, and it's something that we're looking at, but we haven't started it yet.
Okay, guys, I think we'll call it a night. Again, when you're asking about the marketing stuff, that'll be the next webinar. So make sure that you tune in on April, and some of those questions will be answered. All right. So have a good evening and have some fun in the sun, because it looks like the next little while is going to be pretty nice. and probably most of you will have spring break here in the next couple weeks, so you'll get to enjoy it all. So good night, guys.